What's up, guys? How you doing today?
We are back with the IKONICFOX podcast. The Foxes are at it again.
We're at it again. How are you doing today?
You know what? It's Q4.
Yeah.
So I'm really feeling, I'm, on the ledge right now.
Well, we all are. I feel like everybody's feeling a little on edge.
Yes.
But there's a lot going on. At the end of the year, it's like there's so many things happening. Brands and agencies are planning campaigns. Creators are like, they're feeling the pinch because, it's the end of the year.
Yes.
They want to finish strong.
Last minute campaigns popping up.
And they're thinking about 2025.
And that's what we're talking about today.
Exactly.
Because you know what? As much as the holidays are putting a stress on everything from campaigns to brands to your community to mom calling you 12 million times about the Thanksgiving dinner that you actually didn't want to do with the extended family.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
We are going to look forward into 2025 and actually planning and setting ourselves up for success while everyone else is heads down. You guys are thinking ahead.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, because I think, and this is not to, obviously, we don't want to, forget about 2024, obviously.
Yeah.
The holidays are coming. Everybody's excited.
But we're also done.
It's the best time of the year.
Okay, relax.
All right. Well, I think, though, a lot of times what happens, the reason why we're bringing this up now is because a lot of people, they start thinking about New Year's resolutions and like what they're going to do for 2025 and goals for the year after the new year begins.
Yeah.
And so we love to start thinking about planning and prepping and setting goals now.
Yes.
Whatever that is. But this is more focused on creators today, on how creators can
really set themselves apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think also too, this is something that you should be thinking all year round. This is not just let's set our New Year's resolutions type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case here. We're just trying to get ahead of it so that you're not feeling behind. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode, which really we're going to dive into some little industry insights to kind of set the stage.
Yes. So when it comes to creators thinking about 2025,
yes,
or any new year coming up, whether you're an emerging creator, an existing creator, what are some things that they can be thinking about to set themselves up for success?
I think the number one thing is figuring out what your goal is for the year, and also figuring out not just your goal in terms of revenue. I think we oftentimes, when we're talking to our creators, it's less about the money and it's more about what value are you providing? What are you loving creating? What do you want to do more of in even the next season, the next month, the next months, the next year? And thinking less about how that's going to impact your revenue and more about how that's going to impact your community is really key.
I was going to say the same thing. It's obviously...
You're going to copy me.
Yeah.
Take my point.
I'm going to copy you and just go from there. But really, it's obviously creators listening, at the end of the day, creators want to get more brand deals. They want to make more money. They want to work on fun campaigns. But it's almost like you have to really think about, okay, have I enjoyed what I've been doing? Did I enjoy this year, what I've been creating and posting and the types of brands that I've been working with? Is that the direction I want to continue to go? If it is, perfect. Then double down on what you've been doing and focus on that. But if you're kind of like, I want to try something different, I'm not loving the brands I've been working with, or I'm a little bored of what I've been creating, or I want to change it up.
Or I want to attract new brands in from a different category.
Yeah. That's where you can start thinking about this now. So creators don't feel the pressure and the rush of, well, next thing you know, it's like February, March, and you're like, oh my gosh, 25%, the first quarter's already done. And that comes up quick. We know that. So whether it's even creators can start purchasing items. If they want to create new, styles of content where they want to shoot in their house, or, getting things in order, getting the equipment, the resources, things that you need to start planning now. So then you're ready in the new year and you're not feeling rushed.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to start playing around with new gear, but you also don't have to have the fanciest camera setup either.
Exactly.
But if you're at a point where you're like, okay, I want to try some new styles, then that's okay too. I think it's also, if you're in a position where, especially you've been doing this for a while now and you're not evolving, like 2025 is our year of evolution, people.
Which honestly, that's going to be a podcast episode on its own.
Yes.
Is evolving. Just side note, evolving. This is something we talked about before. Evolving as a creator, especially as the creator economy has been maturing.
Yes.
How do you kind of continue year by year and stay ahead and feel excited about everything?
Well, I think that comes down to, again, your goals and not getting complacent and not getting caught up in what your 10 people that you end up falling in the trap of, even the algorithm trap of what the algorithm's serving you, of your friends that you tend to follow, your creator friends. Don't get caught in even the comparison game of feeling like you need to almost keep up with them or continuing to do the same thing over and over, because that's what your audience likes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? If you feel passionate about how, let's just say you bought a new home this year and you are really talented in the hosting space and you are putting together really chic table arrangements, whether they're elaborate or more minimal for the holiday season, and you're like, wow, I actually found that I'm really good at this. That's where life is headed, is like you have created a really cool home space. Maybe that is something that you should show, and maybe you've only been doing fashion. So it's thinking about things that are not just what your audience is responding to now, but the value that you can be bringing to them in the future without getting caught up in the comparison game today.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think it's really natural to feel like, okay, I know this so well. I'm really comfortable with this style of content, and
I'm going to keep doing it.
Exactly. And I see similar styles of content that get served to me. And the same can be said for someone who has been ultra high res with their content and hasn't pulled in as much of their personality into their content. So it's almost the flip side of, what are some things that maybe you've gotten into, not a rut of, but so used to doing, it's almost rinse and repeat of the same types of content, that you're almost stagnant in the growth of not just your follower count, but like how you're pushing yourself as a creator in the industry.
Right. And I was going to say, and add on to that like the new year is like a time when to experiment, and like there's that renewed energy of the new year, and that to us is a great time to try something new. And not necessarily feel like you have to fully reinvent yourself, but more so like what you're talking about. If there's something that you've always loved to do, maybe people don't know about that. As you know, creators, they always have like other things that they love to do, and we start talking to them and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I love to do this. And we're
I'm
like,
so good at it.
Wait, why don't you show more of that? Why don't you start a mini series?
Or they're so funny.
That? Yeah,
they're so funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like that is the time to start thinking about, hey, should I have a little fun? Let's just like put the guard down and just have a little more fun with actually experimenting with the new year.
I agree.
And don't feel like people are going to judge you, because there's so many new things that are happening. People have goals, New Year's resolutions. Everyone's on a fresh slate at the new year.
I agree.
And so when it comes to being a creator, it's the same thing with your content.
I agree. And I think also one thing people can be doing now is giving themselves a little feed vet. So doing your own little audit
I like that.
on yourself. It's such a helpful way. We do this with our creators, and also encourage our creators to do that as well, is like kind of scroll back. Again, setting your goals, setting your intentions, setting how you want to set yourself up for success in the new year, the types of brands you want to attract, the type of audience you want to be speaking to. And does your feed on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, does that align with what you're trying to convey, your message, who you're trying to attract? How many times have we talked about position, don't pitch?
Oh my gosh. That is our mantra, I think, at this point.
It is.
Position, don't pitch.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't seen our other video or episode about that, go check it out. We'll talk more about that. I think as time goes on, we'll elaborate a little bit more. People ask us questions about that a lot.
Yes.
And so I think that would be a good one to go a little bit more in depth on.
Yeah,
and explain kind of what that means and just our philosophy around it. And we're not saying you should never pitch, but it is something that you need to be.
It's a different approach, really. And it's a new way of pitching yourself. And it's really more about storytelling.
Yeah.
And also about the content you're already putting out there. And if you're already the dopest in your space, those brands are going to come calling. And
they will find you.
Yeah, they will find you. And yes, you do need, if you're at a point that you do need management, you need to be with management that aligns to your values as well. And that is something else that people can be considering for the new year is, am I at a point where I need management because I can no longer do this, scale this myself. I'm at a point where I really do need someone. And that is something where when you are at that point, and again, we can get into this in a later episode, and I think we have already touched on it before, is does that management team align with my values, my goals, how I approach this industry? And if they don't, that is not the right fit just because you've heard of them in the space, because they've signed some big celebrity influencer. That's not enough for them to represent you and your brand. You're just as important as that celebrity influencer.
Yeah, and honestly, we've seen this is always a great time for creators who might not be managed or have been thinking about management for a while and have just never taken that next step to really go into it, thinking, you know, doing the research, kind of figuring out, do I want management, and even talking to some management teams.
Yeah.
That's always a good time of the year too to start doing that. So again,
really quick, how would you recommend someone starting to even figure that out?
Well, start now. Start doing your due diligence, asking your trusted contacts and resources, whether those are agencies or brands or other creators that you trust and you admire. Hey, what are some good talent management teams that you've worked with? Who would you recommend that I speak to? And obviously you don't have to take all their word for it, but you need to do your own due diligence. But that's a great place to start to get some, you know, a short list. There are a lot of different types of talent agencies. And again, that's another great episode to talk about that we could talk about. So you guys can let us know if you like that idea of the types of talent management agencies and just like what to look out for if you're considering management. But yeah, I think right now is the best time to do that. So you're, again, not scrambling in the beginning of the year. And a couple months are already gone by and now you're feeling the pressure to maybe sign with management or rush, and you don't have any management contacts or anybody who you've even started to speak to. So start now.
That's why we're doing this episode. Set yourself up for success in 2025. Okay, I want to jump into success stories.
Ooh. Yes. This is kind of a new thing we're going to be doing.
Yes, and this is also, I mean, it is also something, this whole episode revolves around 2025, setting your intentions, setting your goals, and setting yourself up for success. And this creator couple is one that we are just always in awe of their content. Not just because it's stunning, it is, but it's also just reimagining the typical content that you would see, the typical kind of like flow or scope that someone maybe asks for. They always go above and beyond because they genuinely enjoy it. And I think that's also something to really note for the future is you have to love what you're doing and you have to be passionate. It sounds so cliche, but if you do not genuinely freak out over your own content in such a good, passionate way, no one else is going to either. So
I mean, honestly, and so this part of the episode we're going to be adding in when we can. I think we're going to be doing it every week. We're going to call it the weekly icon. And we're going to pick a creator or a brand that we've seen recently that has been
a
standout to us or just in the industry in general. So who is it?
So Danny and Nico of Two Outsiders. They're an incredible Venezuelan couple that live in Miami. They are known for their iconic travel and lifestyle content, and they're also so stylish, so fashionable, but also their home is incredible as well. I mean, everything about them is just perfection. But they recently did a brand shoot for Victorinox, which is they shot luggage, which you can think like, oh, okay, another, airport shot.
Another travel
shot, which I'm sure is beautiful. But instead, the brand really gave them some parameters to follow, but really free reign with their content. I think that's a huge point to note for brands and agencies, ad agencies, is really being mindful of the flexibility that you have with creators that you trust to get the best content out there that you possibly can.
Exactly, yeah.
The more that you really restrict and script and do all the things, it can be more cumbersome and more locked down with how creative a creator can be, obviously.
Obviously. And on the flip side, what we've seen, yes, for creators listening, that is awesome when you get the free reign where they're like, hey, you can kind of do whatever you want. But our advice is to not go so off the rails that you're not keeping the brand in mind or the goal of the campaign in mind. You don't want to be so different or like just be like, hey, I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And incorporate the brand kind of however I want. At least keep in mind that the brand is still paying you.
It's a partnership.
Yeah, it is a partnership.
At the end of the day. So essentially what the mission is to shoot these really cool pieces of luggage from Victorinox. And Danny and Nico came to us being like, hey, we're going to book a trip to New York City. We're going to fly our videographer out for this. And we are going to do a really cool kind of tour of New York City, like what to do in a day in New York City.
And the brand, right, didn't ask them to
do this.
Exactly.
The brand never asked them.
They weren't expecting this.
The brand never asked them. Danny and Nico were never like, hey, we want the brand to cover this. They just said, hey, this is a great long-term partner of ours. We want to do something super cool and special, not only for the brand, but also for their community. Mm-hmm. And we were like, okay, that's sick. Cool. Knock yourself out. Thinking it's going to be a really pretty day in the life in New York City. And instead, it came out way cooler. It turned out like a mini movie of sorts.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And so basically, we'll link the video for you guys, but they really take you through like a guidebook of New York City, but all these really cool shots, almost like it looks like a trailer for a movie.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And
it's such a cool,
yeah,
it's such a cool version of a branded video.
Yeah, it is.
It's really awesome.
Yeah, and their videographer is super talented too, but it's not just where they are like, okay, shoot some pretty content for me. They're really big on planning in advance and really prepping and again being intentional with their content. And that's something that they did in advance of this shoot. So they weren't just showing up being like, okay, I hope this looks cute because we're in New York City. This is the biggest thing too in this space is don't create excuses for yourself of like have a plan in mind, because at the end of the day, you're the creator. So the best way to give the best experience for your brand and agency partners is really, okay, so it's raining. Okay, so it's cloudy out. Let's create a plan so that you are already prepared for when those things are inevitably going to happen, or a stain got on your jacket, or whatever the case is. Like you've got to just make it work. And the creators who are being agile and figuring out a solution are the ones that are really going to continue to stand out in 2025.
And the brands will want to work with them again. Whether it's something that the brand asks you to do or not, if you can just make it work. That's one of our other kind of mottos, make it work.
Yeah.
And the idea is just, there will be times when something comes up and it's not exactly maybe what even the concept was approved on. It's like, oh, I can't now shoot here. It's raining, or it's too dark here, or they didn't pick me up when I was supposed to, or this product didn't show up here. But if you make it work and you try to work around those issues, and again, keeping the creative aspect in mind, the campaign in mind, that's okay.
Totally. And I think going back to this piece of content, I think the big thing too that really stood out to us is, wow, they didn't just shoot a day in the life. They didn't just shoot a vlog. They decided to think of the content differently. And it could have just been a really pretty day in the life. So thinking about your content in a reimagined way. And again, it doesn't have to reinvent the entire wheel, but like a different angle, a different series of shots, a different way it's shot. Thinking of things differently. And I think that's where, going back to setting yourself up for success in 2025, stop comparing and start creating. Truly.
Yes.
Start creating your own path, start doing things differently. And I think we got caught, a lot of creators have gotten caught in trends and like doing the trending trending song. And that is still totally fine. And like those can be used to your advantage as part of your strategy.
Yeah.
But the point is that you got to play in your lane. do what makes you different and really lean into that, because there are a million other people that will relate to you and really be inspired by you, entertained. Guys.
And we get it.
Come on.
We get it. I mean, there are times when it's like, okay, your creators get a little, they're afraid to change too much because they're like, hey, I'm doing well. When I post this type of content or video or style, it does really well.
That's a normal feeling.
But at the same time, that's part of the evolution of being a creator, is you have to evolve also with your content. And that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to experiment and try things out. Even if they don't do amazing, don't get so focused on comparing yourself and looking at the metrics. Like, you have to try some of these new things to just branch out a little bit. And sometimes you may realize or figure out, wow, this does better than what I've been doing. And sometimes you have to just force yourself to get out of that, that comfort zone and the same cycle. And that's not to say you have to, again, not, Danny and Nico, they're not always gonna shoot that kind of video.
Well, that's the point, is you got to break it up.
Yes.
You have to differentiate even your content. So differentiating yourself, differentiating your content, and again, pushing yourself to do things that are different. So I think Danny and Nico, two outsiders.
Bravo.
Victorinox. Yes, we'll link that because that was awesome.
Yeah.
You guys have to check it out, and obsessed. So, okay, moving on to some questions that we got this week.
A little Q&A session.
Little Q&A sesh.
Before we end the episode, we want to do a little Q&A session of just some things that,
have been popping up.
People have been asking us.
Yeah. Let's start with the always asked question. Am I charging enough?
Yes.
Especially in the holiday season, I think some creators, especially in quick turnarounds and also just limited calendar space, that is a question, again, if we're thinking ahead into 2025, but obviously this can be, it's contextual for right now.
And it makes sense too. I think with the holidays coming up, people start thinking about, should I charge more? Should I change my rates?
Yes.
And what's our general consensus?
So my general consensus, our general consensus, is that it really comes down to who the creator is and the demand that they're receiving in the market. So that's a big piece, and we'll dive into more about pricing and what you're charging, the rates, all of that. It really is, it's an art and a science with us and how we do things. But as a management team, we're looking at what is the market demand for that specific creator. If you're feeling like, okay, my calendar is slammed, I am booked up, and there is a last minute campaign that I'd love to take on, but I literally don't have the bandwidth unless it's, it's going to hit X amount in terms of revenue. That is a completely fair thing to start to adjust your rates, or your management team to be adjusting your rates. If you're someone who it is a little lighter, it's a little bit lighter in the inbox, it's a little lighter in terms of partnerships and collaborations that you've been getting, outpricing yourself is also something that can happen. So just because those were the rates maybe 2 months ago or last season doesn't mean that they're always stagnant rates. And that's something I would caution against, just feeling like, okay, well, my creator friend, which we hear, my creator friend made X amount, I should as well.
With the same brand that reached out. Well,
brands only have so much money to spend at the end of the day.
And they value certain things from different creators. You have to keep that in mind. So even though if you have a creator have similar followers to another creator friend of theirs, but they've heard that they're getting paid more with the same campaign, that's okay. Like, there's a reason why they're willing to do that. And I also think too,
I was going to say also, the flip side is there will always be a time where you get paid more than your friend.
Yes.
So there's always this give and take in the industry. So, and that's also why when brands, as a side note, come to us saying that they have the same budget for every single creator, we say, why? When did every creator become the same exact creator?
It happens every day. Yeah.
I'm like, why?
We're on a mission to help brands and agencies
understand.
You can't just price as a one size fits all.
So to me, that all of a sudden devalues every single creator that has grinded and worked so hard to get to where they are and has a diverse voice, a unique background, a unique story, incredible content, works night and day to create this amazing audience. And now it's just boiled down into your follower count. Because
ultimately what ends up happening,
I
know we're going off
now
track
we're going
here,
off the rails.
But that's okay. We're going off the rails. But hey, what really the reason for that is also it stifles innovation from the creator side. Why would a why would talented creators continue to want to do really cool stuff if they're like, well, if I don't have to work that hard, or I don't have to put this much time into my content, because they're going to pay me the same as the other person who's not really putting as much time in.
Exactly.
Well, then screw it. I'm not going to try to be any better than I am now. So it's like, it just kind of like doesn't push doesn't
incentivize
the creative. And the incentivize. So I think also with brands, or with creators, in terms of rates and what you're getting paid or what they're offering you, being flexible, like you said, especially during this time of the year, but any time of the year, but especially this time, we sometimes see creators, they're almost bummed out if they don't get the offer or their rates that they normally charge. And again, sometimes that's okay. Like if they're paying you less than your kind of standard current rates, but it's still fair, sometimes that's fine. Like that deal is a good deal for you at that time, and not to feel like those numbers are just kind of there as a starting point. Yeah. And it's okay to go up and down.
Yeah. And also it's okay to bring that up to them, to say, hey, typically it would be an X range like we were last time, or if you've never worked with them before, it would be an X range. However, really excited to work with you guys and happy to make this work. Or maybe that's where, again, if you're with a good team, you can start to talk about something longer term. So it offsets maybe a more bundled rate up front. So I think that's where, again, to your point, being flexible when it comes to your brand partners, and again, looking at how busy you are, the demand you're receiving in the market, that really should be kind of helping you navigate what your worth is to the market.
Yes.
So,
and one thing I'll add too is sometimes we see, actually a lot of times, at the end of the year, sometimes random last minute campaigns come up for brands and agencies. They're planning things. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned. A creator drops out, or something changes, or budget changes, or the brand wants to go a different direction, and they reach out to you last minute. They want to get this campaign out before, Christmas morning or a holiday of some sort, in terms of getting that campaign out before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And they want to work with you, but maybe they're not offering what you would normally get paid. But working with them, and if it's a fair deal, the thing is, the brands and agencies, they'll remember that. Like, hey, you kind of saved them in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you know what? Okay, these aren't my normal rates. Normally it would be higher, but I'm willing to do that this time. I want to kick off a partnership and a good relationship with you guys. I love the brand. I know you're kind of in a pinch. Like, let's do this. Let's do this. This is cool. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, I agree. So I think, again, it comes down to flexibility and keeping a pulse on what the market is willing to pay. Okay, so the other little kind of question, well, we've had about 1 million of them that's come up, is how much should I continue to go back and forth on revisions with this brand or agency?
Yeah, we see this a lot. I mean, there isn't a right or wrong answer.
Yes.
With how many times you edit or reshoot content. Obviously, it's not.
There is a wrong answer. It's 1 million times is too much.
Yes.
Yes. I think it does come down to, we do set parameters, but we're also going to, again, be flexible with our brand agency partners. You cannot just continue to push and push and push. Now the content is no longer what the content should have been, because it's now become so chopped up.
Yeah.
Choppy, and the voiceover doesn't match. It's like it becomes a mess when brands become too restrictive.
Yeah, it gets like overworked.
Yes. So I think it's important to have the balance of being mindful of who your brand partner is, what they're looking for. Did you follow the brief and the concept and all of those things? That's why I do really like a concept. Do you like a concept?
Yeah, no, I think concepts are great. I think they're really extremely complicated concepts are not helpful, because it almost just, you can't wrap your head around what's the general idea or concept.
I agree.
It's almost like it's broken down too much.
I think a general ballpark is kind of a North Star is great to have. But I think beyond that, like let's relax
something
a little.
High level.
So I think in terms of when it comes to revisions, having a ballpark number in mind, which is what we always have to begin with, however, being flexible based on what the brand is asking for, so that, again, you're seen as a really good partner, team player, but you're also not going to get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And those are the balances to strike in the space.
It's all in context.
Yes.
Like, what are they asking?
Exactly.
What like, how did you shoot it? Did you follow closely to the brief? What's the context?
I have one more question before we hop, and that is, how much do my timelines matter? Hitting timelines on time.
I mean, we don't need to answer this. I think we know the answer, but how would you answer that?
I would say, duh, they matter. They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing too is creators having an understanding that you're missing time. If you're missing timelines consistently, you're impacting your trust that you have with brands and agencies in this industry. Period. And stop. It's just a fact.
Do you want to work with them again?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody who's late all the time and doesn't submit content on time or respond on time, why would they come back and want to work with you again?
Exactly.
They're going to be hesitant. Even if you're like the top creator and you're perfectly aligned with their brand, it doesn't matter. Like, timeliness is super important.
Yes. Timeliness is critical in this space because you have a domino effect on many people. However, being communicative and upfront on what's happening is usually something we can always solve. We can always solve when things happen, things go wrong, product's not there on time, product's broken when it arrives. All of those things can be solved. But if you're not communicating to your team or to the brand on what's happening, and then it causes a whole slew of delays that you never communicated up front, that's the biggest thing, is communicate what's happening. The rest can be taken care of. But sticking to your timelines is incredibly important, people. Just stick to your timelines.
Especially with everybody scrambling right now.
Exactly.
The more you can be on
Tighten
time and show that you are super reliable and dependable and you're on time,
yes,
brands will remember that.
Tighten up your timelines and the bank account will grow.
Exactly. That's the 2025 goal.
Yes.
Right?
Mantra. Okay, so we are going to wrap up this episode, but any key takeaways?
Well, let's see. Prepping for 2025 as a creator, the main takeaway is start now. Don't wait until the new year.
Yep. Also set your intentions for what you want next year to look like aside from revenue goals. Think about the platforms that you're on. Think about how you're perceived on those platforms. Think about the brands that you're working with, and think about the audience that you're trying to speak to. And really what people, I mean, this is a age-old thing that we all talk about, is like, what do people seek you out for in everyday life that you're talented in? And run with that.
Yes. How can you dive into that a little bit more in the new year?
Yes.
And when it comes to creating content, branded content especially, start thinking a little bit more outside the box, getting more innovative. It's okay to
try something new.
Try something new.
Try something new ahead of 2025.
Danny and Nico tried something new and it turned out awesome.
Plan now. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this episode. It's been fun hanging out.
Yeah, this was fun.
Always,
I love this.
Yeah. We would love for you guys to shoot us a DM, shoot us an email at hello@IKONICFOX.com if you guys have any questions on this episode. We love that you guys tuned in. We will see you over on IKONICFOX on social media, and we will see you in the next episode.
See you guys.